Hello and welcome to the Visible and Valued Training Month for Executive Women. I'm Elizabeth Bachman of Strategic Speaking for Results, and this is a little preview for you to give you an idea of what's coming up over the next 4 weeks. We're doing this in November of 2021, and for the next 4 weeks, this will be free to those of you who sign up, and there's an extra special bonus VIP access that I'm going to tell you about. The important thing about being visible and valued is that so many executive women aren't. And when you aren't visible and taken for granted at work or not valued, that's when you see the promotions going to louder, flashier people or passing you by. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about this program, which has worked for so many of my clients, helping them to the career success that they're looking for. I'm Elizabeth Bachman of Strategic Speaking for Results. I've spent 30 years directing opera around the world, 11 years running an international opera organization. For over 10 years, I've been training business presenters in how to show up, how to speak. I'm also the host of the Speakers Who Get Results International podcast, which is where a lot of this training will be held. And I do visible and valued training for individuals and groups. So think for a moment about what best describes you. Are you speaking internally? You speak within your company to the people who are your team or to upper management. Maybe you speak to promote your company, as in for sales and enrollment. Maybe you're speaking to raise your profile, which is something that so many of my clients do once they've worked with me, to show how visible they are. So if you're already doing that, good for you. Maybe you speak on social issues and you want to move people to take action for a social cause, for something pro bono. And maybe you're not speaking yet, but you know that you need to start. Whatever it is that describes you, I tend to work with women who are hitting the glass ceiling. Many of them say that they're not heard, they're taken for granted, they're being passed over for promotions or kept in place. I know about this because I ran into this issue in the opera world when I wanted to run an opera company. I spent about 3 years applying for jobs as an artistic director, general director of an opera company. I was routinely on the short list. Very often I would be brought in, I would be number 2 or 3, and yet I would see the job go to a man. Usually a man sometimes a man who wasn't as qualified as I was, but it was always go to a man. This was my glass ceiling. And it took me a really long time to realize that the problem was I was visible, but I wasn't showing myself as valued. I was valued with my peers, with the artists I worked for, with in the company, people who saw me as an opera director. But I wasn't marketing myself to the people who were hiring artistic directors or general directors, and that was the board of trustees. I didn't figure it out until much later that that was who I should have been marketing myself to. Ultimately, I started my own international opera organization and spent 11 years doing that. So I did get the experience, just not the way I had actually planned it. This month, what I'm going to be doing is showing people how not to make the mistakes that I made, become much more visible and much more valued. This is going to be on the podcast schedule, Speakers Who Get Results. The first week will be about strategies for speaking. How do you set up your strategy so that when you present yourself, whether it's within your company or outside your company in your industry, you are seen as somebody to follow, somebody to promote, or somebody to hire. The second week will be about writing a script that wows. How do you actually write the script? Where do you find your ideas? The third week is talking about how do you make your speech interesting? How do you transform your speech from boring to bravo so that you can spice up your presentations and make it more interesting? And the fourth week will be about how do you actually get booked for a speaking gig? Because the best speech in the world does you no good unless you can find a place to give it. You can find out for all of this and register for the announcements for the emails that will tell you what's coming up at tinyurl.com/VVAccess. However, there are extra goodies. Every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is noon Eastern time, 6 p.m. European time, I will be doing a short live broadcast with the keys for audience engagement. Some of the things that you can use right away to make your speeches more interesting. And every Friday, we'll be posting a link to one of the podcasts that pertain to this, such as how can you be heard? Do you feel invisible? Which is one of the most requested workshops that I do. Also, how do you stop sabotaging yourself? That's called, are you erasing yourself from the picture? And especially on how to use your voice, featuring my good friend and colleague, Cindy Ashton. All of this is available to you if you look for it. If you come and sign up at tinyurl.com/VVAccess, you'll get an alert that it's coming up. You'll be told. Here's the thing about the VIPs, though, and this is why it's going to be really important. I recommend that you sign up for the VIP program, which is at a nominal price, because then you will get 2 live question and answer calls with me where you can talk about how to use the information in the training sessions that I'm putting out and how to make it work for your situation. What are you looking for? You'll also be getting links to the past week sessions, so you don't have to go hunt them out on LinkedIn. Free bonus gifts just for the VIPs. And best of all, you will get a group of allies, colleagues, a group that is going to give you support and help as you talk about how are you going to become the presenter that you want to be, and really to get the support to do it. One of the things that people ask me about is, why does it matter? Why does speaking matter? The thing about being the person who's presenting, and you will know this if you've watched presenters in the past, is that whoever is up there leading the conversation has automatic credibility. Speaking gives you credibility. If you sit back and wait to be noticed for the good work you're doing, you won't get it. Believe me, that's what I did when I was applying to run an opera company. I thought that the good work I was doing and the reputation I had would be good enough. It wasn't. So learn from my mistake. You need to be out there. You need to be making yourself visible and doing it in a way that positions you the way you want to be positioned. To get your result, you need the right strategy so that you're speaking to the right people and you're addressing them with the concerns that they're looking for. You need a script That is the words. You need to know the right words that will appeal to your ideal listeners. And of course, you need a style. You need delivery style so that you come off charismatic and confident. And it all revolves around you, being you, your authentic self, and the best of you. The first week, a little bit more detail about the speaking strategies. What we're going to talk about, again, is how do you position yourself? My client, Pamira, was the head of IT for a well-known manufacturing company. And because she was really good at tech, and she was one of the few women at her level, she was frequently asked to speak about technical things. But she really wanted to move up to being a vice president or eventually to C-level. She was stuck at the level of senior director because senior director that's how far you get through skill and ability. But to a certain extent, you are often then still considered a worker, not a thinker, not someone who can think strategically and become an authority on behalf of the whole company. So what we did was we changed where she was giving her speeches, and we had her speak whenever she was giving a technical speech. She would come to them and she'd say, well, you may have brought me in here because of my technical chops, but I'm really a strategic thinker. And here's my strategy. Here's how I'm approaching this problem from a strategic point of view. The more she did that, the more she was noticed as a strategic figure. She branded herself the way she wanted to be. She became more visible to the people in her company who had been ignoring her up until then. And sure enough, she got promoted to vice president, and she is on her way to C-level. The second conversation is about how do you write the script. And remember, you can find out more about this at tinyurl.com/VV access. That's V for visible, V for valued access. One of the questions I get a lot, and I will be addressing in more detail in writing a script that wows, is if I'm supposed to be out there speaking, what's my topic? How do I know what to speak about? I was having a conversation about this yesterday, actually, where one of the ways you can figure out what are your thoughts, how to choose a topic that applies to the greater part of your industry instead of just your direct job, but the industry as a whole, is to do what I call productive complaining. Look for what bothers you. What are the things in your job or your company or your industry that bother you? Get together with some friends, maybe you open a bottle of wine, and complain. You have permission to complain, talk about what's bothering you. Vent for a while, talk about it, take notes, and then to be productive about it, when you look at the things you're complaining about, where is there something where you could say, here's a solution. Here's a better way to look at it. This is a problem. I suggest a solution. Maybe even what you're saying is, how do you ask better questions? But that's a very good way to decide what your topic is going to be, and then you go on and write the speech. And I will be talking about that during writing a script that wows. The third one, transform your speech from boring to bravo, is how do you enhance that speech once you have your script? This is all about audience engagement. Basically, once you've written the main script, you want to spice up your presentations. After all, an ordinary script that just talks about what it is that you are, the information that you want to give is boring. It could be boring. It's kind of like if you're running an Italian restaurant and you open up a can of tomatoes and boil up some spaghetti and dump the tomatoes on top. That's nourishing, edible, but boring. To make your speeches more interesting, think about the melody of your message. What's your timing? What's your phrasing? What's your tempo? What are you doing to moderate and modulate the tone of voice? How can you avoid tangents so that your speech is a coherent whole and you know where you're going and we can follow you easily? And of course, how can you use stories and metaphors to illustrate your speech in a way that people will understand? That will be the third week of November, and there's going to be a lot more interest, a lot more detail about that. And finally, at the end of the month, how busy executives get booked. With Whitney McDuff, my colleague who is a brilliant PR person and who does bookings for speakers. I find that the problem most of my clients have is they don't have time to figure out where they want to speak or to go out and book their book the podcasts, book the panel experiences, the panel appearances. So we will be talking about how you can actually do it when you have a full-time job. This is another one where I would highly recommend signing up for the VIP access, which you can do at tinyurl.com/VV access. I would highly recommend that because that's when you're going to get a chance to really get some useful information about how to get booked, how to actually apply all this information. One of the things in terms of how to get booked is to identify where your audience is. Are they at meetings, associations, interest groups, podcasts, and which ones, which meetings, which interest groups? We will be discussing that in the live calls where you get a chance to think of where you might actually apply to speak. My client, Tara, is the Assistant Dean for Clinical Research at the UCLA School of Dentistry. And when we asked her what she wanted from working with the group program, my Visible and Valued group program, she said, first, I want to build my confidence. It's really helped a lot to get these new techniques. The second objective was to become aware of where I should be speaking and then take action. We've definitely increased the number of women speaking at these events. I truly thank you for that. So Dr. Tara is brilliant, and she is out there speaking twice as much as she was before, as well as still having the full-time job of being Assistant Dean for Clinical Research at UCLA. Once again, the VIP access will give you 2 live question and answer calls on November 16th and November 30th. You'll also get links to the past week's sessions so that you don't have to chase them around. We'll be getting very useful bonus gifts. And best of all, you'll get a group of peers who are there to support you as you apply this and become more visible and more valued. You can find all of that at tinyurl.com/VV access. This has been Elizabeth Bachman. I'm really looking forward to seeing you all on the talks, and I'll see you on the next one.